Frustrating day last night. It always hurts to lose, but guess what? We are back for a happy hour. It's time to turn the page and look at what's next. This is the United Happy Hour presented by the Elite Football Show. I'm Pauly. I'm joined as always by Joe. We're back at our normal time. We did announce on Monday that we would be on a special time on Friday. I apologize for that. I am currently looking after a family member and my schedule changes basically on a whim. And the preference is to do the show at its normal time when we can. So I apologize for the late notice in the scheduling. Thank you for those of you that are tuning in. Get involved in the comments. We love to hear from you. Thank you for those of you supporting us. If you are listening at a later time on Apple, on Spotify, or watching on YouTube, hammer that subscribe button, rate, and subscribe. I apologize. There's no banner underneath us because we had something else with a different show right now, and it was changed. I didn't notice it until it's too late. I don't know what to write. I was panicking. I'm sorry, hater. Anyway, Joe, we're coming off of what was undoubtedly a frustrating night last night when United lost to PSG. And I say that frustrating, I'm upset, but, you can't be angry. It's one thing to lose to Crystal Palace or to Arsenal or to Istanbul, Başakşehir. It's another thing to lose to PSG. I don't know what the betting market was, but I don't know. I don't think we were favorites to win this game. I don't think we were heavy underdogs. It wasn't out of the realm of possibility. It was two heavyweights or a heavyweight going up against the team that wants to be a heavyweight. And it was a match that we, for the most part, went toe to toe with them. And until Fred got sent off, we were right up there with them. I don't want to say we were the better team because both teams had spells of dominance. I just tweeted this out before the second goal, but when they were lining up to take that corner kick, the popular narrative right now is, the finishing. And, we spoke about the finishing. We spoke about Martial. We spoke about Fred on Red Devils Talk last night. So I don't really want to get too much into that today. I want to look really at the bigger picture here. But the popular narrative is, if Martial just finishes our chances, this is a different game and yada, yada. But it's same thing the other way. I mean, at the time of the second goal, the XG was 1.35 to 0.99 in favor of PSG. They had chances of 0.40, which was Neymar's goal. 0.43, which was the Marquinhos header, had a higher XG value than Martial's miss. And Marquinhos headed it over the bar. So the same way that we say, if we just finish our chances, PSG are saying this could easily say the same thing.
Mate, it's this tough. I think we've been spoiled out because Ollie's had a couple of good results against PSG in the past. But I said last night on Red Devils Talk, this is a different PSG side to what we've come up against. Their midfield was much better last night. I mean, just by having Verratti in there makes that a much better midfield for them, to be fair. Yeah, Paredes is another regular for them as well. I don't know a lot about him, but I know he's part of their strongest team. So their team was stronger. Plus, they were bolstered by the fact they got Marquinhos at the back. So he was a bit of experience in defence that they needed at times, and they didn't have that in the game in Paris, if you remember, either. I think the frustration for United fans comes from the fact that they had the chances to score, like you say.
We were there. Exactly.
They were able to put them away. But I always say this, when you don't win or you're in a bad run of form, I always say I would rather be losing and not winning by creating plenty of chances and not scoring them than actually not creating a lot and not creating chances. I always think it's a lot more positive if you're actually making those chances in the first place. We've seen United go through spells of bad form and lose games where they've created very little under numerous managers. And I don't think that's the case at the moment. Even when they haven't played that well, that they have had chances in games. So I'm not frustrated too much. I'm not angry. I watched Leipzig last night. I think the other reason you have to understand how strong PSG were going to be last night, that game was a hell of a lot more important for them than it was United. United obviously couldn't afford to lose as such. Well, they could, but they didn't want to. But for PSG, after the Leipzig result, it was do or die for them. So if they weren't already motivated for the game, they were going to be up for it after the early kickoff. But what I've seen in Leipzig last night, there's no reason for United to be too downbeat. They've still got a really good chance of going to Germany next week and doing what they need to do. Exactly.
There's no doubt it's frustrating, especially because it was there. But grand scheme of things, this team has won 4 out of their last 5 games. I mean, think about that. This team has won 4 out of the last 5 games. If you do that over the course of the season, that's a 91-point pace. If United go out and win the next 4, I did the math on this. If United go out and win the next 4 out of their 5 games, fans will actually be in uproar because if they win the next 4 and then lose the 5th, that loss will come against Leeds, so everybody will panic. And then if they win 4 out of the next 5, that next loss will be in the 3rd round of the FA Cup to Watford. So again, everybody will panic. But if you win 4 out of the 5 games and Tottenham play at the same pace that they're playing at, then 4 out of the next 5 games, it's only 3 league games. United will be 4 points behind Tottenham with a game in hand. Yeah. So in the grand scheme of things, if you could win 4 out of 5, and that's, assuming 91 points is assuming that you lost the 5th game and not even a draw. Or, what if you win 4 out of the next 5 and you draw against Leipzig, but you win the other 4? So that means you beat Leeds. Then you'd be 1 point behind Tottenham. So in the grand, it's frustrating, but again, it's PSG. And I think when we saw the group, when we saw the draw, there was the overreaction from everybody, assuming we were going to go out. Oh, we've got Leipzig, we've got PSG, and we're terrible. Because our fan base thrives off of counting us out and ruling us out and partially underrating us, and then partially, when it comes to certain players, overrating us. But at the end of the day, if you would have said we would have won against, we'd win 1 and lose 1 against PSG, you would have signed for that at the beginning.
Yeah, well, I said on Red Devils Talk last night, didn't I, Paulie? If you'd have asked us at the start of this group and said, look, you're going to need a point at Leipzig in the very last game of the group, you'd have taken it. Because, like you say, a lot of our fan base didn't give us a prayer in this group. And to be honest with you, I had my doubts. I was confident because I always am with United, and I know under Ollie how we seem to excel against the better teams. So I always had a quiet optimism, but at the same time, I wouldn't have been surprised if it had gone wrong and gone to form as such. So, but if you'd have offered me the chance to get, if you'd have said, right, you're going to need a point at Leipzig on the last game, I'd have probably taken that, to be fair. But probably not taking it after the first 2 games because, obviously we had a great start.
All right. So that's a really important thing. And I'm gonna get to that in a minute. I'll just bring up this comment from N with a bunch of Z's. I'm frustrated at the result we had in Istanbul, everything. Yeah. And United are in a great spot right now because they are going to Leipzig, and Leipzig, I think, are overrated by the United, especially by the United fans. If we stay organized, etc., they don't have a lot of attacking. We should be able to get a draw. It's a game that we should really be able to. Can Leipzig beat us? Absolutely. So it's not a walk in the park in any way, shape, or form. But as long as we're not overconfident, we should be good. And Solskjaer's United really are at their best when their backs are against the wall. But yeah, that Istanbul match. And look, let's be honest. Like I just said, we won 4 out of 5 games. If they get a draw or a win against Leipzig, then who even cares about PSG and Istanbul? Who cares? The name of the game is to advance. What's the benefit of finishing first? You avoid teams in the draw, but it's the Champions League. You got to play good teams. You can't avoid them all. You got to play good teams sometime. We didn't win the group last time out. We went to PSG and we won. We didn't win the group in the Europa League, and we won the tournament.
You're going to get teams like Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid potentially finishing second in their groups, Paulie. So there may not be that advantage. It might be one of them years where it's not so much an advantage to finish top this year.
Exactly. And Borussia Dortmund are probably going to finish second. Like, I don't want to play them right now. That's a horrible matchup for us.
Yeah.
So, like, you get the second leg at home? Well, guess what? Like, United are terrible at home right now. I'd rather be playing the second leg away from home. So as long as you advance, remember when Tottenham went to the Champions League final, they lost 2 of the semifinal. They lost the second leg to City. They lost the first leg to Ajax. Who cares? Nobody remembers that because the name of the game is score more goals over 2 legs and go to the next round. So nobody cares they lost 2 of those 4 games. If United would have went to Paris 2 years ago and won that game 2-1, they would have set a record for away wins with 9, which they did. But they would have went out. No one would have cared that they won that game. It wouldn't have mattered. No one cared that they beat Bayern 3-2 because they went out. So as long as you get a result against Leipzig, like, I could care less about Istanbul and Paris. But as Lokesh said earlier, and these other comments, is Istanbul could be the difference. And this is exactly what we said when we lost to Istanbul. Is when you're in the group, ultimately this game might not mean anything because you have 3 more games to wrap it up. But when you're in the group of death, it's usually the team that loses or drops points against that 4th team that knocks you out. And these things have a nasty habit of coming back to haunt you. And that is really what scares me more than Leipzig does. Just the fact that it's usually the team that usually if you lose to the number 4 team, you're the one that doesn't go through. But you did bring up a point. You did bring up a good point that I wanted to talk about the timing of it all, because this reminded me of the 2014 World Cup in the United States, which was Landon Donovan's goal in 2010 was like a huge moment for the United States. So the 2014 World Cup went from being a thing that like people watched because it was on to like being a thing that people were really looking forward to and really wanted to watch for the first time. Like non-football fans were really looking forward to it and were carving time out of their day to make sure that they watched all these matches. But you still had a lot of fans that didn't really understand it. And what happened was the U.S., they won their first game. They drew their second game. Then they lost to Germany, but Portugal didn't win. So they went through. And people were all like, why are we celebrating a loss? And you had to have people being like, well, we're not celebrating loss. We're celebrating the fact that we went through when no one gave us a chance in a group with Germany, Portugal, and our nemesis, Ghana. And people brought up the good point of like, let's say we played Germany first and we lost, and then we drew Portugal. And also, just like United, a game that we should have won, we gave up a 96-minute equalizer. Like we had 6 points in the bag. So let's say we draw or we lose, then draw, and then win our last game. Like that's the same chain of results, but you're looking at it in a whole different outlook. Yeah. And I think it's the same thing here. Is if United go to Paris on the opening day of the Champions League, where really no one was giving them a chance, especially our own fans, and they lose, I don't think anybody would have been surprised. And then had they won this game, like when you look at the 2 games, I think the way that those games, they were very even, they were very tight. A break could have gone this way, a break could have gone that way. It was a fair result for both teams to win one. But if United lose the first one and win yesterday, like how different is the outlook now?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But you talk about celebrating losses there, Paulie. Let's be honest, mate. If United lose to Leipzig next week and Istanbul do the unthinkable and beat PSG, we'll be in the same situation, but we won't be celebrating the fact that PSG lost. We'll be celebrating the fact that we've qualified. And that's, at the end of the day, when you support a certain club, Paulie, you want to win things by hook or by crook. It's like people will say in the Premier League, well, why are you happy that this team's lost? It's a bad state to be in if you need to rely on other people to lose to win. Well, if you're going to win a league or you're going to win anything, at some point you're going to need someone to lose for you in order for you to win it, or to win it by whatever you need to win by. So at some point you're always going to be looking for someone to lose a game in a league, in a tournament, in anything. And that's just part of the game.
And look at how fine the margins were. Istanbul came back and tied it yesterday and then gave up a 92nd minute winner. Like it could have, that's how close the margins are in the Champions League. And this comment from Joseph, 5-0 Flyers in the first game, you're right. It 100% did. But what did not flatter us was 0 or the 0. Yeah. Because and we said this right after the game, was I gave Solskjaer credit because Leipzig weren't getting anywhere near United's goal. And after 65 minutes, he could have brought on McTominay for Pogba, brought on Dan James, and, went in the defensive route and just short things up and seed out a 1-0 win, which in Europe is a great result, a result that, and get you 6 points, which no one expected you to have. And it wouldn't have mattered because Leipzig were not coming close to United's goal. And instead, he went for the jugular. He brought on attackers, and they hit him quick and hard for a bunch of late goals. So, yes, the 5 flattered United, but the 0 did not. And that's what you got to do again, is go in there and be organized. If you don't concede a goal, you're going through. That's that's the only thing you got to remember. And is it very Mourinho-esque? Yes, but sometimes you have to be pragmatic and just get the result you need. If you don't concede a goal, you're going through.
And you said earlier, Paulie, that Leipzig are one of the teams that seems to be overrated by our fan base. And I think one of the reasons for that is because they see in Leipzig and in Nagelsmann maybe a style of play that they would like to see at Manchester United. But style of play is one thing. If you actually look at the individual parts that Leipzig have at the moment, since they lost the likes of Timo Werner, that, like you said, Paulie, that they can be got at, and they're not the threat going forward that they once were. So I think, it's all well and good having a style of play that you like to play, but you have to have the players to do it. And I think that fast attacking play that they used to be known for, I think you're seeing this season more than most, just how reliant they were on Werner to execute that as well, week in, week out.
Exactly. That's huge. And this is something that came up, I want to say yesterday. I was on The Athletic. They wrote an article basically about Leeds' attacking and how they've taken, I think, 48 shots in the last 2 games. Their XG over those 48 shots is 5. They've created some great chances. They scored 1 goal in those 2 games because that's, they don't have great players. Like, so as good as your tactics are, tactics don't put the ball in the net. Players do. And so, Julian Nagelsmann is a great coach and everything, but Leipzig at the start of the season, we're getting a lot of goals from their wingbacks. Like, that's not going to continue. And there's every reason for United to be confident, but also you do have to be wary because they are very good and they can nick United. But, you bring this up, you lose to Leipzig and City and the LAers will be hard to shut up. Yeah, if you lose to Leipzig, it's going to be bad, especially if you if you don't put out a good performance. Like, that was the other thing about, but the LAers, everybody, when they beat Paris, they go, yeah, well, we know we could beat the good teams. Yeah. And then when they lose to Istanbul, we know we could beat the good teams. We don't have, we can't beat the bad teams. And, now we have to play PSG and Leipzig again. It's like, well, if we could beat the good teams, then those are the teams we shouldn't be afraid of. And, I actually was impressed with the way that the team played with 10 men last night. They threw themselves forward. They were far better than they played with 10 men against Spurs. They were better than they played with 11 men against Arsenal. So there were a lot of positives to take from this match. It's just ridiculous if people are coming after Ollie for losing to PSG. Because again, like, it's one thing to lose to Palace. It's one thing to lose to Istanbul. Like, it's PSG. Like, but on paper, they have.
Paulie, on that comment though, do you think, if we don't advance through, especially having won the first 2 games, do you think Ollie's under a bit of pressure because of that? Or do you think they will look at it and be like, at the start, this was a really tough group. It's a bit harsh to have expected us to get through this. Is he under pressure if he simply doesn't qualify? Just a quick question.
That's a good question. And that's I don't know what the expectations were of the board and Woodward and of Ollie and the people in the club. They were probably the expectations were to advance. And then if you don't, then you failed. And that's fair. There are a lot of fans who, as soon as that group was made, have come out and said, we're not, we have PSG Leipzig, like this is bad. Look, is Fred suspended for Leipzig? Yes. So they'll have to figure something out, probably Matic, something like that. I don't know. That's a question for Tuesday's happy hour. There are a lot of fans that said, when they saw the draw, because we love to overreact, we're not going to go through. We're going to go back to the Europa League. Well, if that's your expectation, then if we go to the Europa League, we didn't fail. We met your expectation. That's how it works. You don't get to all of a sudden be like, well, they failed. If you said, I don't expect this team to go through, then it's not a failure. They met your expectations. I said I would expect this team to go through. So yeah, it would be bad. To me, it's a failure. Yeah. Well, against City, will Ollie come under pressure? Probably, because he always comes under pressure. If he loses to City, that's what he's 3 wins, 2 losses to City in the last 2 years. Like, in the grand scheme of things, again, like, let's say you beat Leipzig and lose to City and you win 4 out of the 5 of your next games. Like, that's, I think, what we need to focus on is big picture here. Like, United, I remember saying this to you, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, maybe, is when people say like they're maddeningly, right? Is that the word?
Annoying.
United are annoyingly inconsistent. And like when people start saying that yesterday when they go 1-0 down, I mean, we can rattle off all the times that they've gone 1-0 down this year. And if the question is going 1-0 down, they are frustratingly consistent in that regard.
All of their away wins this season, they've gone behind them, Paulie.
Yeah, and how many times have we conceded a goal in the first 10 minutes of the game? It's a lot already. Like, we didn't go 1-0 down against Tottenham, but within the first 10 minutes, we were 2-1 down. So they're frustratingly consistent there. But big picture, they've won 4 out of 5. And like I said this to you, I think coming out of the break, is they can win the next 3 or something and then lose to PSG or something. And then it's, you've lost, you're screwed up your chance in the group. Yeah. Or they can, if they win on Saturday, they've won 4 in a row in the league. Like, there will always be a break somewhere that it'll be like, but they, like, because of the fact that we're playing in all these different competitions, there's always somewhere where you draw the line and you could spin it poorly. Had they won last night, and that's 4 in a row, and then lost, and then lost to West Ham, and then gone out and beat Leipzig, and then won again. It's like, but we only won 3 in a row in the league. Like, it's inconsistent there. Yeah,
you can dress it up how you want to, can't you?
Yeah. Let's see. NZ saying, does anybody know our best midfield in front of back 4 or 5? And this goes along with a comment we got earlier. Let's bring it up. This is poor radio here because I'm looking for stuff, but there was a comment about the return of Tuanzebe and Shaw. Here we go. Same, also from NZ. Now that Tuanzebe is back available and Shaw's looking fit soon, do we think the way forward be a back 5? So we don't have to double pivot. The back 5 isn't the way to go. And the back 3, the back 5 isn't the way to go. There's a reason that Solskjaer really doesn't like to go with it. He goes with it when there are injuries, and he goes with it when typically on the road. You said this in the group chat yesterday. I'm surprised he didn't go with the back 3. It was a big talking point. He didn't go with the back 3, even though Tuanzebe and Shaw are hurt. And I said he wasn't going to do it at home. He only did it at home last year twice, against Liverpool and against City. Liverpool was probably the strategic move because he pushed his wingbacks up high to pressure Alexander-Arnold and Robertson high, so they couldn't get into the final third and be dangerous. Yeah. He also didn't have Martial that game. And against City, he didn't have Rashford. So, like, if you're not going with the back 3, the reason he did it was basically so that he could cover for the fact that United, if they don't play them, the 2 of them, like they'd have to play Pereira and Lingard. Now that he
by
doesn't.
The way, if he does play a back three, a back five, it doesn't necessarily mean he won't play a McTominay Fred pivot, because against PSG he played a back five with a McTominay and Fred pivot. So
right, and the problem with the back three and the back five is United just don't create chances. They have to be ruthlessly efficient, which they were against PSG, but that's in the first leg. But that's because they got a penalty. And then they finished off a different chance. They squandered a lot. And this is a team that is not a good finishing team. So you cannot say, you can't go into a match and say like, oh, we're only going to create 3 chances and expect to finish 2 of them. So the back 3, back 5, it's not the way to go. And it's not it won't be Solskjaer's preferred method, but that doesn't have anything to do with the pivot. Like you said, is Fred McTominay in big games. That's probably the preferred method for Solskjaer.
He wants ball winners in there, doesn't he? And
exactly. Like the best,
they're the best ball winners, whether it be through tackling, whether it be through reading the game or just being more combative. We know Matic can be a good ball winner, but he has to be physically in top shape and on the top of his game, and he just isn't frequently enough at the moment. Whether that's an age thing or not, I don't know. I mean, NZZ's made a good point there, Paulie, that he's just come back with a comment as well. I think that Ollie I think he probably overrated this defense in the summer, and now obviously he's had a bit of a reality check of the season. We've talked about this before, but again, that a lot of his midfield choices are influenced by what's behind that midfield, isn't there? There's no getting away from that. We know that, Paulie. We've talked about this. We know that defense has looked open at times, so you need to protect it. It's not so much the midfield itself; it's what's behind it and what's in front of it as well.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, and all of it's true, and that's why we saw so much Matic or Fred and McTominay in October, because Matic, really the key is Matic has been so off form. And now this is what I was going to get at is part of your best pivot is Matic, regardless. And now the question is, can you play Matic and Van de Beek, or can you play Matic and Pogba together? And part of that has to do with they all have to be on form. At the beginning of the season, Pogba was off form, but Matic was painfully off form too. And you provided no screen for your defense. In the first game of the season, McTominay was the defensive midfielder, and he didn't do anything. He let Crystal Palace just run right at those guys. So your best pivot is going to feature Matic. You just run into the issue of we can only play him once a week. And then do you have to play Fred next to him? Can you play Van de Beek next to him? Can you play Pogba? Those are the questions that need to be answered. And it all has to do with players being on form. But the only reason that you saw McTominay and Fred so much in October was because everybody else was off form, that he acknowledged it. The defense was poor. He had to protect them. And that's why he went to the 2 of them at the expense of the attack. They created nothing against Chelsea and Arsenal. Matic is now coming into his own. He's starting to play like Matic again. So he doesn't have to play McTominay and Fred. He can expand on that. And what do you know? The attack's getting better. Question from Aditya. Would you rather have wanted United to play for the draw after halftime? I wouldn't say playing for the draw, but I would have brought up Matic. I would have brought on Matic for Fred. And even at the start of the second half, when United were playing well and Fred was playing well, I was second guessing that decision.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, everyone's obviously. I would have took Fred off as well because of how he was at halftime. But actually, when you look at the second half, Paulie, in isolation, Fred played really well. He was probably one of our better players until he got sent off, and then obviously he shouldn't have been sent off. But we're not going to complain about that because, like we said, he should have been off before. But actually, he did everything the manager asked of him. I think at halftime, or whoever had a word with him, he responded to that. He did cool down a little bit. He played better, and if he had got away with that challenge, I think he would have probably made the full 90. And who knows what you don't know.
It's hard to say that because he was playing better, but you knew that the ref was looking for him. Yeah. So any little situation, and he's probably going off. So I would have taken him off and maybe brought on Matic. And if you go Matic, McTominay, like that is very defensive. But I would have been happy with 0-0 last night. Like again, just get get the just move on. And so I did suggest saying maybe if you're going to take Fred off for Matic, bring on Pogba as well, so that you don't completely lose the attack. You can have a player that can spray those passes out and start the breaks. And that maybe wouldn't have been playing for a draw, but I wouldn't have minded him taking off Fred and bringing on a player like Matic or even taking off Fred and bringing on Pogba and still having the energy of McTominay next to him. The issue is that you didn't know how fit Pogba was. Was he actually hurt last week? Was it, as I suggested, maybe Solskjaer was just keeping him out, keep him out of the limelight. But one of the reasons that we get to where Fred's been the big talk today, and whether Ollie handled this correctly. That's when you woke up, you check your phone, you go on Twitter. That's what the dominant headlines were, and it was about this. So, Joe, let's talk about what's on social media today.
Yeah, so you said obviously about Fred there, but there has been some other things, Paulie, floating around social media, and I think the first one we're going to talk about is McTominay, and is it his gripes with Neymar's theatrics. Now, this became a bit of a theme of the game, wasn't it? It was probably the most intense battle, player against player battle on the pitch last night, and it's interesting where your take is. I suppose if you're a bit of a numb-headed Man United fan who can't see football from any other angle, you might suggest that McTominay almost tried to bully Neymar out the game. He was too strong for him. He was too thing. But actually, I think it was more the other way last night, Paulie. I think actually Neymar was on his game a little bit last night. And sometimes when great players are on the game like they are, in fairness to Scott McTominay, although he might have not been tackling and getting around him like he did in the first game, he was at least breaking the game up with little fouls. And I think sometimes we've had it ourselves with Cristiano Ronaldo, Paulie, when he was one of the world's best players. I've seen many a team. It got to a stage where the only way that they could stop him was by kicking him, was by tripping him, was by just breaking him up, just breaking the flow of the game up. And I think Scott realised pretty early in that game yesterday that Neymar was on it, and that was the way around it. And obviously Scott's come out today, and this is the point of what we're going to talk about theatrics. Now, look, Paul, you said on Red Devils Talk last night, when it comes to shithousery in football, there's not many that's much better than Neymar, to be fair. And I think I said in the group chat during the game, if he's not the biggest one of those in the game, then I don't know football, to be fair. But then again, to be this is what I'm saying, Paulie. You get this in every team, by the way. You get one of these players nearly in every team. We saw West Ham moaning about it with Grealish against Villa the other day. We've had it ourselves with Ronaldo. Diego Costa's another player that does it. Is it all part of the game, or do you think Scott has a point? Because I think Scott's got a player on his team who can be quite theatrical in Bruno Fernandes sometimes. We've seen him milk a lot of fouls and make a lot of fouls, but how do you see this? Do you think he was just outdone by Neymar, or do you think he has a point?
Scott's complaining because we lost.
Yeah.
If we win this game, Scott McTominay doesn't care about Neymar and what he did. And this is exactly what it was you look at is what I said this on Red Devils Talk yesterday is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had a great plan in the away game to Paris, and they executed it perfectly, and that's why they won. He wasn't bad in this game. You can talk about the Fred decision, but everything else, Ollie, the selection, everything was the team that we wanted to see, and we thought that was the right call. Thomas Tuchel had a great plan. He had a great plan. He said, because he knew, like I said, everybody and their mother knew we were going to go to McTominay and Fred. So Tuchel said, we're going to attack. We're going to focus on them because they don't progress the ball. So we're going to try to cut everybody out. When McTominay and Fred play in these games, we say that they play well because we always say, they played well, but it's because they're only doing half a job. They don't have, it's just win the ball back and then let somebody else handle it. You look at how they progress the ball in these big games, these games that we were like, they played really well against Liverpool, Chelsea last year, PSG. They're only doing half the job of a midfielder, which is fine. That, our game plan is built around that. But Tuchel basically said, no, I'm going to make everybody else do things. And you look at I'm gonna try to pull it up, but you look at the the progression numbers for everybody for United yesterday. They weren't getting anything from McTominay and Fred. They were getting it from everywhere else. I mean, look, the number one player is Maguire. You have your attacking players that are dropping back to handle the progression. That's a great job by Tuchel. But most importantly, what he did was he sent his guys out there to throw McTominay and Fred off their game. And Neymar is one of the best at it. And that was where he excelled. The shithousery, like I said, you had that situation where McTominay's standing over him. And then right after that, the ball comes back into play. McTominay fouls him right away. And the referee went over and looked at McTominay and goes, "Hey, cut it. You know, I understand that you just stepped on his shin completely by accident, which is why we're not going after you. But now that's two." And then you go to the net. And then if you look here at right after that, if you look, I'm sorry if you're listening, but the play restarts and Neymar actually puts his hand out against McTominay. And when he does that, McTominay is obviously going to fight back exactly the way he did. He grabs his arm and he wrestles Neymar to the ground. And it's another foul. The ref calls another foul, and Neymar comes back right away, goes right over to the referee and goes and, signals, "Hey, 3 times in a minute that this guy's just fouled me." But the referee, Neymar knows what he's doing, and the referee knows what he's doing. The referee is basically like, "Well, Neymar, you put your hand out there, so what did you expect?" But Neymar knows that. He's not expecting McTominay to get booked, but the fact that he now gets to go over to the ref and say, "Hey, 3 times in less than a minute," the ref's looking at McTominay now. And the ref's any little thing. And in the United States, we had Clive Tilsley and Rob Green on the commentary. And right away, Rob Green was like, McTominay's got to be really careful because Neymar's really good at this. He's going to sucker you in and he's going to get you booked. He's very good at doing that. And in the second half, there was a situation where Fred got the ball near the corner. He kicked it, cleared it, and Neymar just comes up right behind him and clips him. Just clips him lightly. Fred goes down. It's a foul. It's not a booking. It's whatever. Neymar's just letting Fred know I'm here because that's going to wind Fred up. And there's a purpose for that. You said it in the group chat at halftime. You said, "I want McTominay to just go and stick it to Neymar. I just want him to go and take him out." And that's exactly what Neymar wants him to do. That's what he's trying to do because he's throwing you off your game. And McTominay and Fred they're thrown off their game. So with all their limitations that these two guys have, because they do, Fred's first touch yesterday was poor and it got him into a lot of trouble. But Fred's always had kind of poor first touch. But if he's thinking about Neymar when that ball's coming to him, it's, he can't even focus on improving that. It throws him off his game. And that's just the brilliant thing. This is why you trash talk, why did Maserati say what he said to Zidane, to get Zidane. I don't think he was expecting to get headbutted in the chest, but he wanted Zidane to react and not be thinking about the game. It worked phenomenally. But in ice hockey, every team has somebody like this. You have somebody who just winds people up and goes after your star players and gets you to take a dumb penalty. I'm just going to nick you and you're going to slash me back. And that's what the ref's going to see. And he's going to call a penalty. My team will get a power play. We score. And it's going to cost you, that is perfect. And Neymar's one of the best at it. And so, he's going to go with the theatrics because the theatrics are going to drive McTominay mad. And they're going to keep coming after Fred. And it's probably, it's on Ollie that he didn't react to that and say, I got to get Fred off. And even when you got 15, 20 good minutes from Fred, maybe when you go 1-0 down, that's the time to do it. Because at 1-0 down now, do you say McTominay and Fred are the pair that's going to get us back into the game? And at that point, you're 68 minutes in, that's the time to make the change. And in that regard, it's a failure. But McTominay's mad because they lost the game because Neymar threw him off his game. That's that's the real reason. What else we got on social media, Joe?
I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Or?
Oh, of course I could hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. My computer just decided it was going to shut down for no apparent reason whatsoever, and I'm having connection issues. But yeah, I've not caught everything you said there, Paulie. But the one thing that comes to mind for me as well is, remember the Ronaldo wink after the Rooney stamp on Carvalho? I think was that 2000. Everyone. Sometimes you have to appreciate a player as a player and an opposing player. You're going to be targeted because you are so good, and people know what a difference you can make on a game. And look, I just think Neymar must get a lot of that treatment, to be fair, and it'll be nothing new to him. And I think it's just what comes with the territory, Paulie, to be fair. But like I said, I'm not quite sure how far you are with this chat. Have you said everything you need to, or is there anything else?
Yeah. What else do we got on the social media, Joe? Take us to what's next.
What else we got? So yeah, look, this big thing, Paulie, about Bruno, and all of a sudden you've said before, Paulie, I think you sum it up well. He is a wonderful player. He's probably one of the most talented players that we've had for a long time at Man United when it comes to individual quality. But with that talent sometimes comes a whole lot of frustration as well, doesn't there? And look, this was one example of last night. You caught it, this screenshot that you've got here at the moment sort of shows it better than any picture, to be fair. And look, this idea that he went for the passes, I often think he does, Bruno, to be fair. I think he gets a lot more satisfaction out of setting up players and scoring goals himself, which is fine. And I think there's a few players in our team like that, which is sometimes okay, but sometimes frustrating. I think Rashford's another one of those. I think Rashford's got to be a bit more selfish in thinking. But yeah, this situation here with Bruno, Paulie, first of all, I'll ask you, you see this now as it is, you saw it last night, you've seen it probably again on a rerun. What should he be doing here?
You put your laces through the ball and you shoot. And I tweeted it, and this was what was just astonishing, is the amount of people that came out and said, oh, if Bruno shoots that and it's saved, or if Bruno shoots that and he shoots it over the bar, we'd all be slagging him off for not passing to Cavani. Like, he's clean in on goal. There is not one person who would sit there and say, oh, Bruno should have passed the ball when he is the furthest player forward.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I mean, Cavani isn't even in position to receive this. Cavani's back here. There's a man on him. We're not even in position to receive the ball. There's not even a passing angle. Like where you go. If Bruno wants to pass this ball, he's got to take another touch or two and come out wider and then drag it back to Cavani. Like, what are you doing, Bruno? Just go out and be. You got to be selfish here, and that's the thing. Like, Bruno, world-class talent, also, and the most talented player United have had, or short of Pogba in his day, but like game to game, the most talented and the most fun player United have had to watch in years. Also, the most frustrating player because his decision-making at times can be so brutal, and it's so frustrating because he has the talent, and you hold him to a higher standard because he is that talented. You expect more out of him. And there was another situation earlier in the game. I don't have, he in the second half, Maguire heads the ball and there's a man right on him. And Bruno does this amazing job of bodying off a defender, bringing the ball down with his foot, like just an incredible first touch, getting possession, and then misplaces like an easy 10-yard pass to Cavani. Yeah. And it's just so frustrating because there's all the times where he does the dumb giveaways and everything, and you can live with that. What drives me nuts is when he misplaces the simple passes.
You know why I don't think a lot's being made of this, though, Paulie? Because I mean, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, and you've got a great photogenic memory of a lot of goals, and you've got stats in front of you there. But I can't remember too many times, especially in big games, when he's given it away and it's actually led to a goal, if you know what I mean. And I think it'll probably be not until that happens in an high-profile game, and maybe happens over 2 or 3 games where that happens, where people will actually start to realise, just how much he does give the ball away, and just how crucial that can be in our team, especially when we look at how vulnerable we are on the transition.
You would have seen it last year, but VAR saved his ass. Against Crystal Palace, he picked out a very difficult and dumb pass that he tried to play, and it was intercepted, and he had a much safer pass available, a much safer, easier, with a higher upside pass available, and he went for the more difficult one. It was intercepted. Palace went right down the pitch and scored, but VAR, and it was one of those like really close VAR decisions. Bruno's just a really interesting player. The comments, we got some comments right now talking about Van de Beek as well, and I've got some thoughts, and I'm gonna get to them because there are some good comments here from Renak. Van de Beek's not a creator. We should rest Rashford. I don't totally disagree with you, Renak, but you're not wrong, but you're not right either. And we'll come to that. Bruno's an interesting player because anyone who actually works with stats, and anytime you bring up stats, everybody will be like, you can't just use stats. Like, you have to watch the game too. The stats don't tell the whole story. Anybody who actually works with stats will be the first one to tell you you cannot exclusively look at, only a select few number of people like Michael Edwards cannot watch a game and just get the whole story with the stats. Anybody who works with them knows you need to do both. You need to look at the video, you need to watch the player, and look at the number. No one personifies this more than Bruno Fernandes, because it's almost like when his stats are good is when he's at his worst and United are bad. And when his stats are bad is when he's at his best. Like we spoke about this last week, is first half against Southampton, 48% passing completion percentage. And I was like, that's awful. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And second half, it was up to 72, which is, like I said, bad compared to the rest of the number 10s in the league. It's worse. But that's what Bruno's average is, and that's where he's at his best. Wednesday, against PSG, he was at 76%, and he played worse. And maybe, you look at it like, to go back to the progressive passing thing, if you look at, here's Bruno's touch map on the day, which is great. This is what I've been saying you want to see from Bruno Fernandes recently is he's not dropping into midfield. He's getting the ball in around the box. He's staying high. Maybe you forget, maybe he forgets that with McTominay and Fred playing, he needs to drop back more. If you look at the average positions here on the right of your screen, he's actually further forward than Cavani. So he wasn't dropping into midfield at all, which is great. It's what you want to see, but something's lacking. And this isn't a criticism.
He's quite wide a lot looking at that touch map as well. Is that, do you think, more because Cavani's playing and he thinks
it's because he moves around? It's because he moves around. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'd rather see this map versus PSG than a different map, like where he drops deeper. I think this is good. If you keep playing this way, ultimately good things will happen and continue to happen. It's just funny how, like, when he's seemingly doing the right things and he's not being as careless with the ball, etc., somehow it's not coming off. Like it is the most mind-blowing thing how, like, the stats just don't explain him at all. But hopefully, if you bring on a Matic or if you have a Matic, a Van de Beek, a Pogba there, then Bruno doesn't have to drop as deep, and you want him staying further up the field because that's where he's going to be most effective. To bring it back to Van de Beek, I was really not impressed with him when he came on. Now, granted, he came on with 10 men, for 10 minutes. There's not a chance for him to make an impact. The only way he could really be impressive is he comes on and scores. But he really, there were just times where it looked like United could catch PSG out and hit them in transition, and they had players making the runs, etc. And the ball would come to Van de Beek, and it was like he was going for hold-up play. And he was holding it up. He was going backwards, or, bringing the ball back to McTominay or Pogba, while instead of, trying to pick out that run. And it was a little frustrating to watch. I am intrigued to see him the way he played in the second half against Southampton, Rashford, when Cavani came on, Rashford went out to the right-hand side and Van de Beek came over to the left. And I'm interested to see that. Him in more of that role, because I think that might be the way to go. We don't have a right wing. We're going with temporary solutions such as Mason Greenwood, Juan Mata, and now Marcus Rashford. And Rashford decent on that right wing.
Yeah.
From the left wing. So if you're going to look decent on the right wing, go be decent there if we have other options that could play on the left.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, but what about when he becomes like a direct maybe replacement for Bruno as well? I'm interested to see what he does there in terms of playing that position. Do you think Van de Beek sometimes is maybe when he has played with Bruno, it can get to a stage where too many cooks spoil the broth, as we say? I don't know if you say that in America, but in England we say it where you have too many almost of the same type player in the team and wanting to play the same position. If he's playing without Bruno, would it be more interesting to see how he would do in that sort of 10 role? Or
yeah, well, they're different types of 10s. Like, that's the thing, is Bruno, as we unfortunately saw it last night, loves the pass, loves to create. He might be happier with an assist than with a goal. And this is what I've been saying is, and I said this Saturday, Sunday, maybe, is Bruno or maybe last week against Istanbul, is Bruno seems like the better player when he's hunting for goals rather than when he's hunting for assists.
Yeah.
Van de Beek is the type of player who likes to receive. He's very good at finding the half space to receive passes and everything. He's getting frustrating because he doesn't seem to shoot from around the box. And it's like, if you're going to be good at receiving balls in and around the box, like, you got to turn and either, he got the ball around the box a lot last night and then just passed it back or out. And, he kept possession. Yes. But, maybe you need that riskier play. And you maybe, like Bruno passes more as the 10. If you're going to get into dangerous positions in the box, you need to then either shoot it or make the pass, like slip in a Rashford or a Martial. So I do worry about this. Like, this is what the comments have been talking about this whole show is when do you rest Bruno? Because we're going to run Bruno into the ground.
That is going to be really interesting over the next. It's got to come at some point, Paulie. I'm surprised we haven't kind of seen it already. So the fact that we haven't seen it already means that it must be really, really close.
It's frustrating.
I don't know that you're doing well in the league at the moment. You don't want to lose that momentum. It's a ground where we've struggled before. Plus, I do think West Ham will sit deep for a lot of that game. So is that a game you really need? It's tough to know. I think if we'd have got through last night, it would have opened up so many options for Ollie, because he would have definitely not played Tuesday night. He wouldn't have needed to play Tuesday night, but now he probably does. It's a tricky one, mate. I mean, but it's a good point people make. We have to be careful with Bruno, because if we lose, you can
rest him against Leipzig. You can, because they didn't play him for 65 minutes against Leipzig in the first leg.
Oh yeah, that's a point.
And that's so like the thing is, he needs a rest. You have to. There's two players that Solskjaer really needs to find a rest for, and that's Bruno Fernandes and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, because Wan-Bissaka. Brandon Williams is a capable backup at right back, but so much of this team is built on Wan-Bissaka being able to just shut down his flank by himself. We can devote the center backs and the midfielders to guarding the middle and helping out on the left. If you take out Wan-Bissaka, Williams will need help, and now you're spreading your help a little bit thinner. So for all of Wan-Bissaka's limitations, like, the actual rest of the team is built around him, around his defensive ability. So so where do you find that rest for him? But with Bruno, it's the same thing. Is Donny van de Beek's a great player. Paul Pogba is a great player, but we saw Van de Beek come in against Leipzig, and then Bruno came in, and it was night and day. It's not that Van de Beek is bad. It's just that right now, especially the way that this team is built, it's a completely different story when Bruno Fernandes is on the pitch versus when it's not. So there's no, again, every minute counts. So if you can play him, like we said last week, if you can play Cavani for only 45 minutes and get 2 goals and a win, you do it. If you could play Bruno for 30 minutes and get a win, you do it. That's the huge risk, though, because, we only played Pogba for 25-ish minutes against Chelsea. And Greenwood for 9 minutes. And I think if you brought on Greenwood 8-9 minutes earlier, United probably win that game. They ran out of time. And that's the risk you take. Is Van de Beek good enough to give Bruno a rest? Yes, but like you worry about where the rest of the team's going to be. You have to think about this. Like I was saying before, can Van de Beek play off the left with Rashford on the right? Because you can't play Cavani every week. You can't play him every game. So eventually Martial's going to have to go onto the into the middle. And that means someone's got to go on, someone's got to go on the right. So if you put Rashford there, that solves that. If you put Rashford on the left, how many games Juan Mata's had some great games this year. He's also had some games where he's done nothing. Rashford's hurt right now. So, when do you get Rashford a break? Because, if you're just going to go with Cavani and Martial every game, then you're going to run them into issues. So
people have said in the comments, Paulie, we've had some here. We had one earlier that said about the month that we've got coming up. You look at the teams that we've got to play, the likes of Leipzig, City, Everton, Leeds, all good sides. And the problem is someone said earlier in the season, it's a defining month for United, and it might be. And that's not just.
But every month's a defining month. They said October was a defining month for United. Every month is a defining month for United.
Yeah, but what I'm saying with this one is it's not so much in terms of results, which obviously is, but also in terms of the squad and how they think. Because if you think that if Solskjaer feels that Bruno's got to play every one of those games in December, or even Wan-Bissaka, it's very hard to see them coming out of that period without some sort of injury or needing a longer rest.
Right, and that's where we should give him some credit as to how he's handled the squad already. Everybody's complaining right now. We have too many injuries. They were up, 44% when we brought up those numbers, the last international break.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're still up or if they've gone higher or if they've gone lower. But if you listen to a Liverpool fan, it'll sound like there's been more injuries than ever.
30% up at this stage now, Paulie. I think it's 30% at the moment.
So every team is struggling with injuries. You listen to Klopp. We spoke about it last show, him complaining. And then he goes out there in the Champions League and makes 2 substitutions when he's allowed to make 5. Yeah. So, and now, I really like Jurgen Klopp, but you just invalidated everything that you've said. And Solskjaer should be given credit because as much as, and we had a comment early in the show basically saying it's hard to get consistency when, you can't play the same 9-10 players every game. And that's true. But also we've been intentionally not playing the same 9 or 10, partially because they're out of form and partially because we are rotating guys. We are keeping guys fresh. Rashford's in
formation as well, Paulie. How many times have we changed formation? Like diamonds, 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 5 at the back. So when you change formation, you have to change personnel, don't you?
Absolutely. And part of the reason that we change the formation and do that is so that we can rest players. So that we could bring on an extra midfielder so you can rest one of your attacking players. Do you think this comment from Tassif Zaman, do you think Pogba starts against West Ham? I think he's very much in contention too. The only lock, there are 2 locks in the starting lineup, and that is Harry Maguire and Nemanja Matic. And I would think Pogba does come in. But back to this from NZ, having a set starting team, you need the careful squad rotation. Think about the injuries we've had this year. Rashford's got a shoulder, that was picked up during the course of a game. That happens. Shaw's got the hamstring injury, and that's it. In terms of muscle injuries, where every other team is having a problem with all these matches, United are fresh, or United maybe not fresh, but they're not having them because their squad's been balanced more. Does that help that Martial could only play once a week because he was suspended? Yes. Cavani, we didn't rush him into things. Think about this. Last year, Martial got hurt early on in the season, and Solskjaer said Mason Greenwood's not ready to start, so I'm not going to rush him. And we played shorthanded for that. This year, Cavani signs, Martial gets suspended for 3 games, but Solskjaer says he's not ready to play, so we played shorthanded. Instead of rushing him in and possibly risking burning him out, risking having an injury early, he just said, we're gonna stay with it. Donny van de Beek has not started. He's only started games. Maybe I think last night was. Oh no, he didn't start last night. So he's only started 6 games.
Yeah.
So when the time comes, he's going to be really fresh. And just think about when Liverpool won the Champions League. How massive was Divock Origi that season? He popped up every here and there with big goals all the time.
And Shaqiri as well.
Yes, but Origi like big time.
Yeah.
And did he get a massive new contract the next year? Did any club come in and say, we got to sign Divock Origi? This guy's unbelievable. No. Why did he come up with all these massive goals? Because he didn't play in the first half of the season. You know, he'd played something like 200 minutes, one of which was in the derby where he scored that ridiculous winner. But then in the second half, he came on and he was fresh against every other team that, you know, their defenders are tired. And that helped him make up the difference between his lack of skill and getting that little advantage.
Yeah.
And that's going to be massive.
He was rewarded with a goal in the Champions League final, wasn't he? So, no, I mean, mate, we know, don't you, to win anything here now, especially this season as well, with the way it is, you need to have a good squad and you need to utilise that squad. And that comes down to your manager. It doesn't matter, Paulie, like what your ability is, playing, everything like that. As a manager, you need to know how to use your squad. And it might not be, I think when people say rotate, they always think, oh, well, this player's got to play a full 90. It's not even a full 90 sometimes, Paulie. Just if you can give a player a break for 45 minutes or for half an hour, it can make the world of difference. Rotation doesn't mean making 6 changes a game and doing that. It means resting 1 or 2 here. And when you can give a player half an hour break, if it's there, do it. You know what I mean? And that's where I think I agree with you with Jurgen Klopp. There's a few examples, as much as he whinges about substitutions, there's been examples this season, like the Champions League, where you just think you could have given that player half an hour off in this game. You could have given that player 45 minutes off. And that makes all the difference because it's that 45 minutes. And
he tried to last week. That's why he was complaining, because he pulled Salah off after an hour and then they gave up an equalizer. And I remember, I believe it was West Ham. Not to bring up bad memories, because West Ham away is like the one game I feel like we can never win there. But he pulled Rooney and Tevez off the pitch, and we were 2-0 up, and we ended up drawing 2-2. It was like in December, but he went 130 something games, or I think it was 130. I think it was 131 without naming the same starting 11. You know, that it's a change here, it's a change there, and I think managers in this day and age have gotten worse at it. They go, oh, League Cup, we can rotate our squad 8 changes. And it's really a change here. It's a change there. You know, there's always an excuse to play people. Remember when Tottenham went up to Tranmere? I believe it was Tranmere a couple years ago in the FA Cup. Yeah. And they won 7-0. And Harry Kane, who had played like every minute of the festive period, came on for the last 10, 15 minutes. And Pochettino was like, well, the Tranmere fans, how often do they get to see England's captain playing on their ground? And it's like, all right, that's a good sentimental thing, but like Kane needed a break. Like Kane, you know, Kane shouldn't have even been near the squad that day.
And if you think, Paulie, that's what I mean. I mean, you look at it, that could have been the difference between what about if he got injured in the last 15 minutes playing a tight game against Manchester United? You know what I mean? You think, well, that 10, 15 minutes he had at Tranmere would have just got him through the last 10, 15 minutes against United.
Exactly. So, you know, it is a big month. It's a big month, but I think Ollie's been handling this well. You know, like we have seen him play. To say that he doesn't know his first choice 11, maybe, but like we've seen what happens when he does know it. He's played them before. He did it when he first took over and he ran them into the ground. They all got hurt. And then he did it last year and he ran them into the ground and we crawled over the finish line. You know, he's avoiding, you know, Matic probably should have been on the pitch yesterday. As good as the Fred McTominay pair has been in big games, Matic against Chelsea, City, all those teams last year, even better. But you can't play him twice a week. And if I play him against West Ham, I can put out a more attacking-minded player next to him, and that might be what gets us. So there's like we say this all the time, you know, naming your starting 11 isn't as simple as naming your best 11 players or your best 11 players in each position. It is, okay, if I want to play this player. He adds something here, but takes away from something over there. So I need to play somebody else to balance that out. And he's doing a decent job of mixing and matching. You know, it's going to lead to some inconsistencies. Are United playing their...
The other thing as well, Paulie, where it becomes a factor as well, is obviously apart from who's fit and who's not fit, and who's playing well, who's not playing well, you have certain players who play well against certain opponents. And even like now, it's like we touched on it with Southampton. You know what I mean? I mean, probably Cavani was always the ideal striker for that game, but because of your schedule and because of the way that it is at the moment, you can't even play the players that are right. You almost have to say, well, I know this player is not right for this game, but he has to play because this player can't. I want to play him, and it's horses for courses. But managers are having to make more decisions now than ever, I think, this season, and we'll see. Obviously, who's the best of that come the end of the season.
Yeah, it's a long road, but you know, let's look at the macro view again. 4 out of 5 wins. Now you could say, oh, but they played terribly against West Brom and the performances. So I don't care. This isn't the time. First of all, when are United famous for kicking into gear? At Christmas, right after. So historically, this isn't the time of the year where they play their best football. But I don't want to play our best football right now. No, I want to play our best football in the springtime. I'd rather grind out results while we're not playing our best football and figure out, okay, here's what's working, here's what's not, here's what we got to work on so that we can get to that level. And I'm going to close with this. Because our comments are talking about Real Madrid and the pressure Zidane's under, because they are a nightmare in the Champions League and even bigger nightmare in La Liga. And this comment from Wokish, if Zidane gets sacked, it would help relieve pressure on Oli. And that's an argument with the
only if Poch goes there. Yeah,
the feeling is because you would assume they're going to hire Poch, and that is like one of the two teams that Poch wants to go to, is Real or United. I'd worry about that, because I think, like I said earlier, Solskjaer's really good when his back's against the wall, less good when it's not. And we've always seen him at his best when those Poch rumors get louder and louder.
He won't be under too much pressure, probably, because I remember last time when Mourinho a lot of people were saying we should get Zidane. So if Zidane leaves Real Madrid, it'll probably be, instead of it being Poch, he'll be under pressure. It'll probably be people calling for Zidane next. And
right, but I think part of the pressure that Oli faces is because everybody wants Poch, and he's just so available. Like,
yeah, no doubt.
You don't have to buy out another coach or anything. So if Poch now becomes not available, then it's like, oh, okay, we could fire Oli, but who would we get? And there's all those other questions that make it less likely for him to be sacked. So it does, in effect, relieve pressure. I do want that, because I would like all that outside noise to go away, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I kind of like the fact that Oli has to keep looking over his shoulder and he can't get complacent, etc. It's the same thing as building competition within your squad. Joe, another great happy hour. United, 4 out of 5 wins. Let's go make it 4 in a row in the league. It's away.
9 in a row away at West Ham.
In the league. 9 in a row away in the league. No team has ever won that many. United have a freaking tendency to set a new record and then immediately lose. So let's try not to do. Let's try to build on a record this week. We will see you next Tuesday, unless we don't, because my schedule can change whenever. So just follow us on Twitter at the United Happy Hour. Follow Joey's at Fatboy Slim, because apparently he used to be a white rapper back in a previous life or something.
DJ, Fatboy Slim with the DJ, mate. But yeah, but guys as well, thank you for getting involved. We've had some brilliant comments tonight as well, Paul.
Great comments, keep them coming. Thank you for listening. This is the United Happy Hour presented by the Elite Football Show. Hammer that like and subscribe button, and we will see you next week.